Nintendo launch lineups. I've already ordered these so that they are in release order of console. That's the order we're going to go through. Be aware, some of these lineups, mainly some of the earlier ones, I didn't exist or wasn't conscious enough to experience firsthand. I have to go by just what I'm looking at it, and I'm going to try to judge them based on the time period they're in, because that would not be fair to be like, oh, this console had nothing like the Switch has. Like, what? So, you have to redeem points for this. Yeah, no, I really wanted to give my thoughts here. So first of all, the NES, which was before I was born. That was, what was it, 1986? Is that correct? 1985? No? Uh, 1985. 1983 for Japan. So this was years before I was born. I did not own an NES at any point in my life. Well, no, I think I have one in a box somewhere, because at some point when my dad was still alive, I think while I was in college, my dad saw one at a yard sale or something, and just spontaneously bought it for me, since I had every other Nintendo console other than the Virtual Boy. So I think I have one technically, but I've never played it. I also think he spontaneously got me a Neo Geo or something. Not Neo Geo. No, not a Neo Geo. There was a Sega handheld. I don't remember which one. That I think he spontaneously got me, that he also saw at a yard sale, and I haven't ever played it. Just, he loved yard sales, and it was off, and then he saw something that'd be like, oh, that sounded like this, and so, great dad. But, yeah. Let's see. The NES launch lineup. The Japanese NES launch lineup. Obviously, the Famicom came out in Japan 2 years prior to the NES. So the Famicom in Japan had 3 games at its launch lineup. Donkey Kong Jr., and Popeye. I don't know if Popeye's good. I don't know anything about the NES Popeye. I played Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr. While I think I was too much past the prime to enjoy those, Donkey Kong is a game changer of a game for its time. Donkey Kong Jr. I feel less so, but it was a sequel. But I don't think it's fair. I think I'm going to base these off of the Western releases. I don't know how I'm going to base these, because Nintendo, or the NES had way more options. NES had, let's see, let's make sure. The NES didn't have any of those 3. It didn't even have Donkey Kong. But the NES had 10-yard fight. Nobody's talking a 10-yard fight. Baseball. I don't think anybody cared that much about baseball. It was a game. Clue Land. Okay, we're getting to stuff some people probably liked. Duck Hunt, which was a pack-in game. And Duck Hunt was pretty notable at the time. Simple now, but at the time, I think that was exciting for people to have a light gun game. Excite Bike. I've never thought Excite Bike is that great, but I think it has its fans. Golf, we're going back into it, just filling the launch lineup. I don't think we were lining up to get Golf at launch. Gyromite, another pack-in game that used Rob. Yeah, I don't think that Gyromite necessarily was beloved. Hogan's Alley, they're another light gun game. Probably not as good as Duck Hunt. Ice Climber, janky game, but I might have been cared about at the time. Kung Fu, nobody talks about Kung Fu. Mach Rider, pinball. Sure, it's cool to have pinball at home, but like, it's far from the best version of pinball you're gonna play. Stack Up, another game for Rob. Super Mario Bros., which is also a pack-in title, and pretty monumental. Tennis, going back to Wild Gunman, Wrecking Crew, kinda, sure. The NES, I mean, it had quantity. It's really hard for me to judge it because I wasn't there, and the NES I don't have like any nostalgia for. But we didn't have a lot, or not we, but gamers didn't have a lot of options for home consoles yet. And I think having Super Mario Bros. At home already was a pretty big deal. Duck Hunt also pretty cool. Honestly, though, in my opinion, the console really didn't take off until Metroid and Zelda. And I would put the NES in B tier. It has a fine lineup. It's not anything that like necessarily blows your mind, and there's only really a couple must-haves, I think. But it gave people options. It did give people options. It's not bad. Game Boy. Yeah, I'm doing my best for the ones that are before my time. Thankfully, that's actually the only one that's like literally before my time, because I had a Game Boy. I don't think I had a Game Boy at launch, which was it 1989? I think it was 1989, which is the year I was born, yes. So I did not have a Game Boy at launch because I was busy being born, but I did get a Game Boy during its kind of lengthy lifespan, because it was a pretty big gap for Game Boy Color. Like, the Game Boy Color didn't come until 97, I want to say? 98. That was 9 years. Like, that was one of the biggest gaps, probably the biggest gap we'll have here. And so, during that time, I did eventually get a Game Boy. It had the pack-in Tetris. And Tetris... Do I need to say anything about Tetris? Tetris was... I'm not even, like, the biggest Tetris fan in the world. That's fine to me, but, like, I'm not going to deny it. Tetris is one of the most influential video games of all time, period. End of sentence. Tetris... It was like a phenomenon similar to how Pac-Man was, but probably bigger. And Tetris has remained strong for decades. We still have Tetris games. I'm not even going to try to search how many Tetris games exist, because I'm just sure, I wouldn't be surprised if it goes into triple digits at this point. And that was a pack-in. Your Game Boy, right off the gate, was giving you the most popular video game of all time to that point. You already were sold. But what else did we have as options, or what did they have? Alleyway, which I believe is like Breakout. It's just a different brand of Breakout. I like Breakout. It's... Sure. No, that's a decent option. Baseball and tennis, I think we're going back into kind of if you need to fill in and you really like those sports. Yakuman? What was Yakuman? That was only in Japan, and that was Mahjong. Okay, I don't think anybody was lining up to have Mahjong on their Game Boy, even in Japan. And Super Mario Land, which honestly, janky game, dated a bit, probably wasn't as good as Super Mario Bros. Right off the gate, but you had it on the go. I don't think it holds up the best, but I think at the time Super Mario Land was notable. The Game Boy lineup, that's considerably smaller. 6 games, one of them a pack-in, as opposed to the NES's 17 games. But honestly, I'd say...
With Asana, AI teammates can pull real-time data and help keep work on track. So
I didn't know I was going to do this. Sorry about that. Honestly, that gave me a heart attack. I thought somebody was talking to me through my computer. The music will be back in a minute. But yeah, only 6 games, but half of them are pretty notable. No, 2 of them are pretty notable. Alleyway's fine. But Tetris Super Mario Land, I've seen somebody else tier these, and I think they were too harsh to Game Boy. Game Boy has a small lineup, but you're getting Tetris with your Game Boy. And you still have Super Mario Land there on shelves if you want to buy it. And if you're really desperate, you have Breakout, Baseball, Tennis, or Mahjong if you're Japanese. It's not going to be an A tier, or an S tier, but I think I feel it's fair to put Game Boy in A tier. Do I? Yeah, for its time. You had, because again, I think this was the first handheld with cartridges where you could swap out, like before you had stuff like Game & Watch. So just to have that and be able to swap between Tetris and Super Mario Bros. Or Super Mario Land, that's pretty good. I'd put it in A tier. It's not it. Okay. I think I'm being a little generous to Game Boy, but no, now that I think about it, I think I'm being too generous. I think it's above NES, but I think it's still B tier. You do only have a couple good games. They're really good games for the time, but only a couple good games. Super Nintendo, or Super Famicom in Japan. Japan's lineup for the Super Famicom was kind of abysmal. It was 2 games. You had F-Zero, great game. You had Super Mario World, great game. You probably wanted both. That's all you're getting. But North America, we got a few more options. We got Pilot Wings. I don't think Pilot Wings is necessarily mainstream popular, but it had its fans. I need this Mario World, baby. You had Pilot Wings. You had Gradius 3. I mean, that gives a bit more variety. You have SimCity. SimCity's impressive. SimCity, you're playing SimCity on your Super Nintendo, on your home console. And it's considered a really good version of SimCity. And then you had Super Mario World as a pack-in game, which, mind-blowing. Like, I'm not sure the only arguably better pack-in game I think in history has been Wii Sports. Having Super Mario World you didn't have to buy anything else. You had Super Mario World always. Really great. And just look at the lineup. Sure, this is the smallest lineup. Yeah, this is smaller than the Game Boy. 5 games. But it's F-Zero, Pilot Wings, Gradius 3, SimCity, and Super Mario World. Let's twist it around again. For not only are these all generally well-liked games, you have a pack-in that's a platformer. You have a racing game. You have a simulation game with SimCity. You have a space shooter game with Gradius 3. And then you have whatever the heck Pilot Wings is. Flight Simulator. You had variety. New Pilot Wings. Fair. I'm not a Pilot Wings fan, but I understand it has its fans. You had variety with the Super Nintendo, and they were all good. It wasn't a giant release like the Famicom. I think it had better hits than the Famicom. It was consistent. Honestly, I kind of want to put Super Famicom, or Super Nintendo, sorry, not Super Famicom. We're doing Super Nintendo. We're doing based off that, not Japan's lineup. And I kind of want to place an S, because, again, it's not a huge lineup, but everyone hit. We had great games. This also was before it released 91? Is this 1991? Verifying. 1991 in North America, 1990 in Japan. And 1990 in Korea. Interesting. So, yeah, I was 2. I didn't have a gaming console yet. I got my Super Nintendo when I was 5. There was more games out. It came packed in Super Mario World and Super Mario All-Stars. Plus, my parents got me Disney's Aladdin. But if I was gaming in 1991, I would have been so excited with the Super Nintendo lineup. I would have had trouble picking what I wanted. And though knowing me, I probably would have gotten Super Mario World and SimCity. And maybe F-Zero, maybe. Depending on how much money I could afford. But, yeah. I am confident that one's an S tier. Super Nintendo honestly had one of the best lineups for launch. Oh yeah, and Europe also had Super Tennis. Sure. I don't think anyone cares. Okay. And now, the infamous Virtual Boy. 4 games. Doesn't matter which region. 4 games. Galactic Pinball. I'm sure that people are dying to play Galactic Pinball on their new Virtual Boy. Mario's Tennis is a pack-in. Cool. Why tennis? Red Alarm? What is Red Alarm? What's Red Alarm? Oh, it's a wireframe game. Why do you want that? It's a flight wireframe game. Teleroboxer? Cool. You punch stuff. Honestly, probably the best game there. And nobody knows what Teleroboxer is. But this is the Virtual Boy. The Virtual Boy flopped for a reason. It started out awful. I think the only game I've ever heard anybody speak fondly of is the Wario Land or whatever. I think we know where Virtual Boy's going. Unfortunately, time didn't make it much better either. But that's the business. 4 games. Again, nobody knows what Teleroboxer is, like, unless you had a Virtual Boy. That's the coolest looking thing there. You have Mario's Tennis. You could play tennis on your Super Nintendo. Sure, I guess it's not in 3D, but it's also not all red. Last time I never heard anything much about his games. Yeah, no, there's a reason. And now we're getting Nintendo 64. And Nintendo 64 is pretty beloved. Wow, the Europe lineup was a little crazy. We'll go with North America first. Because North America is the one that has the smallest. 2 games. 2 games. No pack-in, but pack-ins were done after Virtual Boy, I guess. Yeah, wahoo, we got Super Mario 64. Cool. I think it aged a little poorly. It's a little clunky now. Great at its time. Great 3D game. Pilot Wing 64. I'm sure people love it. Still a niche game. People aren't lining up for Pilot Wing 64. People, if they're buying a Nintendo 64, they're buying it for Super Mario 64 and the promise of more games. I will touch that Japan had a 3rd game, Saikyo Habu Shogi. It's shogi. That's like launching with chess. Nobody cared about having shogi on the Nintendo 64. Europe, they got FIFA Soccer 64, and they still got Pilot Wing 64 and Super Mario 64. They got Star Wars Shadows of the Empire, maybe that was good. Turok was good. Wayne Gretzky's 3D Hockey, I haven't heard anything about it. I don't know if people liked it. Turok is the one thing that probably added a little value there, or maybe FIFA. But we're basing off North America, and I hate to say it, while I love Nintendo 64, and I think it got some amazing games, I am such a Banjo fan. DK64, Diddy Kong Racing, Majora's Mask, my favorite game of all time. The Nintendo 64 released horribly 2 games. We're doing the US lineups. 2 games. That's a D, I'm sorry. The only thing holding it afloat is Super Mario 64. You didn't... Honestly, there wasn't a huge reason to rush to get into Nintendo 64. Nobody cared about having Shogi on the net. Exactly. I don't mean to speak for the Japanese gamers. I'm just fairly confident that people weren't hyped about Shogi releasing at launch on a Nintendo 64 on the new 3D console. Clubhouse Games is better on Switch too. Yeah. So it hurts me to play Nintendo 64 so low, but it had a really rough launch. And one great game and one niche game are not enough. You want options. The Super Nintendo had 5 great options. And now Game Boy Color. So first to get out of the way, Europe had Frogger and Turok 2. But we're not talking about Europe. I guess both other regions had the same lineup, Japan and North America. So we have Centipede. Centipede is, I mean, it was a popular arcade game. Let's see, can't open it, but yeah, Centipede's a popular arcade game. Game & Watch Gallery too. You got some Game & Watch games. Pocket Bomberman. I love Bomberman. I don't know anything about this version of Bomberman. So it probably was just Bomberman in color. And Tetris DX is your last option. Now Game Boy, it did amazing having Tetris as a pack-in. You could already get Tetris on your Game Boy Color. Tetris DX just made it natively in color, but you could play Tetris and it would do whatever color the Game Boy picks for that. This was the Game Boy lineup, but worse. Of course, it was... It was a half step for handhelds. It wasn't like a full next system. But it had been 9 years. And there are some great Game Boy Color games. The lineup, they probably could have held it off for 1 or 2 big games. Honestly, I think N64 at least had Super Mario 64, and so this is going below that. 4 mediocre games. Not enough. Tetris DX. Again, I'm not saying Tetris is mediocre, but they already had Tetris. It wasn't the novelty of now having Tetris on the go. You had Tetris on the go. This is just in color, and I don't think color enhanced it enough to make it worth getting a new console. Plus, you had it in color on your NES, it's just not on the go. Game Boy Advance. Oh god. I'm not going through the Japanese lineup. This is how many again? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25 games in the Japan launch lineup for Game Boy Advance. We had 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We had 10. We're basing these off of the Game Boy Advance, or off the North America, as always. Oh, what did Europe have? Europe had 1? No, they must have had other... I'm not trusting that. They might have had the North America plus 1. Plus Total Soccer Manager. I don't care. I'm not going to go through all the games on the Japanese ones. We're not basing it off that. I'll just note the notable ones. Wait a minute. Some of these were definitely... Some of these were definitely, Okay, never mind. We had way more than 10. This is just saying the ones that were exclusive. We had 17. I have to actually use Wikipedia here and not the fandom. Well, fandom's useless again. So what do we have? We have Army Men Advance. I don't think anybody cares that much. Castlevania Circle of the Moon. This was like having a new Symphony of the Night on a handheld. Game Boy Advance, by the way, is the first one of these that I got at launch. I didn't get Circle of the Moon at launch. It's Castlevania's T-rated, and my parents, I was not close enough to the age. My parents were kind of a little strict. So I didn't get Castlevania Circle of the Moon. My first Castlevania was A Magic Dawn of Sorrow, the DS one. But, Circle of the Moon, still, I haven't even played Circle of the Moon, really. I played a little. But, it's still a pretty critically acclaimed game, and this was a launch title. Choo Choo Rocket I got. Choo Choo Rocket probably isn't as big. I love Choo Choo Rocket, great puzzle game. And this was a Dreamcast game ported onto a handheld, and it held up fine. Earthworm Jim. I'm not a big Earthworm Jim fan, but Earthworm Jim's kind of praised in like the top 100 games from like 1989 to 1999. I read a book that was kind of picked the top 100. Earthworm Jim made the top 100 that decade. That was the 1994 version, and this is a port. But still, you're having Earthworm Jim on the go. That's not bad. Fire Pro Wrestling. I'm not sure Game Boy Advance is where you go to for a wrestling game. F-Zero Maximum Velocity, though. Another F-Zero game as a launch title. F-Zero is still not mainstream popular, but you had a great racing option there. GT Advanced Championship Racing if you wanted something more modern day cars. Probably not as good. Iridian 3D. I don't know what that is. It says the rail shooter. Cool. J-League. No, that's Japanese only. Skipping that. Konami Crazy Racers. There, you got another racing game. Kart Racer. I don't think it's no Mario Kart, but it's, if you wanted something more kart racer, that was an option. Namco Museum. That's kind of a pretty big deal, having on one cartridge on the go, having Miss Pac-Man, Galaga, Galaxian, Pole Position, and Dig Dug. Like, those were games that if it was Game Boy or Game Boy Color, they'd be standalone. And you had these 5 games in one. All these are in the Super Circuit. Oof. Pinobi Wings of Adventure. Not my type of game, but probably has some fans. Pitfall the Mine Adventure. Like, probably not the best game there. Rayman Advance, though. It was a port of the first Rayman game. Now on the go. Ready to Rumble Boxing Round 2. I'm not sure how much people cared. Super Dodgeball Advance, same. Super Mario Advance? You got a Mario game right off the bat. Yeah, it's Super Mario Bros. 2, but you have it on the go with new features. And it includes Mario Bros. Not bad. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2? I'm not a skateboarding fan, but from my understanding, the Game Boy Advance Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 was pretty good, and this was on a handheld. Like, it wasn't going to be the same as the 3D ones, but this is pretty good. The only one I want to mention, really, or only 4 that I want to mention that Japan got that we didn't get. There's Kururin, which I know Dragon likes. I don't know how much it's liked, though. There's Mega Man Battle Network. That was a launch game in Japan. Mega Man Battle Network. That's crazy. Mr. Driller 2? I mean, people like Mr. Driller. And Yu-Gi-Oh! Dungeon Dice Monsters. I know that's probably not anything people cared about much, but I like Dungeon Dice Monsters. I didn't play the video game. I had the physical game, but still. Yeah. remake all the Mario games and make a new. They should have made a new Mario game for GB, but that's a different subject. The point is, this was a packed lineup, excluding the Japanese exclusives. The 17 games, I'd say at least half of them are pretty good games, and some of them are amazing games. Castlevania was one. F-Zero's pretty popular. Like your Super Mario Advance, of course. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. Namco Museum. These are... You had such a range of genres, too. So many choices. That being said, I don't think it quite reaches S tier. I think it's top of A tier. It needed a couple real must-haves. Like, Castlevania, I think, is the best game there in that bunch. And it really, if it had a unique Mario game, if it had really any first-party game other than Super Mario Advance, it might have pushed over the top. But it's still, I think, an A rank. I need to stop fiddling with the slipper. It's still an A rank launch lineup. Yeah, I don't think it's quite S tier, but the Game Boy Advance is really good, and honestly I don't know how many are gonna really make it to S tier. So next we got the GameCube. I'm not trusting the website I was using anymore, so now, while the Game Boy Advance and the GameCube both came out the same year, I didn't mention that they both came out 2001, and they were like a little over 6 months apart. I think like 10 months apart. So obviously, if I got Game Boy Advance at launch, I got GameCube not at launch but close to launch. It came out November 18th. I got it Christmas. So while I didn't quite get it at launch, I did nearly get it at launch, and where are the... Let's see if this has 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, yeah. The Japanese launch actually was a little more pitiful. Well, honestly, still not horrible. The Japanese launch was only 3 games, but there were at least 3 pretty good games. GameCube NSO hype, yeah. GameCube, I have so much nostalgia for it. GameCube, I think, like my top 3 systems have at this point been Super Nintendo, GameCube, and Switch, and it kind of fluctuates based on when you ask me. But I really love the GameCube because I was really active in picking my games at that point in time. And I had the purple GameCube. I liked the purple GameCube, the indigo. I kind of wish we had the spice, the orange one. But, yeah, the GameCube launch lineup in Japan was 3 games. We had Super Monkey Ball, which honestly was actually... This was the first Super Monkey Ball. It's a pretty critically acclaimed game, so, like, that's not bad for third party. That was their only third party one in Japan. Then they had Wave Race Blue Storm, which I've heard is not as good as the original Wave Race, but it's still Wave Race. It gives you a racing multiplayer option, other than multiplayer Super Monkey Ball. And then Luigi's Mansion. And Luigi's Mansion is a really weird choice for a launch title. I loved Luigi's Mansion, don't get me wrong. I played it to death. I got it at release. I got my GameCube for Christmas. The night before, my parents let me open one gift that they picked, and it was the Luigi's Mansion walkthrough, and I was like, oh, well, they wouldn't be giving me this if I'm not getting a GameCube and Luigi's Mansion. So, Luigi's Mansion, I got at launch, or at near launch, and it's a great game. It's a weird game to pick as a launch title, and I think people are skeptical with Luigi's Mansion. It's aged really well. people have really come around for Luigi Mansion. I think at the time people were like, why a game with Luigi and not Mario? Why this weird exploit? Like, it wasn't what people, I think, necessarily wanted at the time, but I think it was still a great launch game. It kind of short. Then in North America, we also had All-Star Baseball 2002. Sure, another baseball game. Batman Vengeance. I don't know how well that was received, but it's a Batman game. People like Batman. Crazy Taxi. Crazy Taxi was popular. I never played it, but it was a popular Dreamcast game. Having that launch is cool. Dave Mirra Freestyle BMX 2. Another sports game. It probably has niche fans. I don't think a lot of people are lining up to get that at launch. Madden NFL 2002. As well as NHL Hits 2002. People like sports games. At this point, sports games, I think, are really starting to take off. So, like, I'm sure people cared about having that launch. Not me, but people did. Star Wars Rogue Leader, Rogue Squadron 2. I was not into Star Wars games, so I didn't even play this. But I've heard praise of it forever. So I know this was a popular game, a good game for launch. Tarzan Untamed. Honestly, probably the weakest title in there. I don't think anybody cared about a Tarzan game at launch. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. It's Pro Skater. Again, I don't like skateboarding, but like, you're launching a Tony Hawk Pro Skater. Like the latest one. I'm sure people were excited. Actually, I think the Tarzan Untamed, now that I think about it, I think I remember hearing that Nintendo specifically tried to make sure Disney would bring a game to launch. Which is kind of funny. Anyways, yeah, that's the launch lineup. But there's a small caveat. I don't know if we can count this in our launch lineup thing. Like 2 weeks later, we got Super Smash Bros. Melee, which is probably the most notable multiplayer game on the system, possibly the most notable game on the system, and Pikmin, which was experimental but really cool, and I think, honestly, it had a lot of fans, even though it was a niche game, and obviously it's grown since then. And I got Super Smash Bros. Melee for Christmas, too, with my GameCube. I got Luigi Mansion Super Smash Bros. Melee, and then I bought Pikmin with Christmas money or something. As well as I eventually got Super Monkey Ball, I think for maybe my birthday. And I think in the February after release was Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, and I think I got that right away. I think I saved money for that from Christmas. But yeah, honestly, as much as I love the GameCube, what did you actually have for launch as your serious options that were like mainstream popular? You had Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, Star Wars, the Rogue Squadron 2, I guess Super Monkey Ball. As much as I love Luigi's Mansion, I hesitate to put that as a big system seller. That was kind of in the realms of Pilot Wings and a more experimental game that not everybody would like. It hurts me because I loved the lineup the GameCube launch so much, but a lot of it is nostalgia of leading up to launch. I wish I could count Super Smash Brothers and Pikmin, because if you can count those in the launch lineup, that would probably bump this up to at least an A. Probably a high A. But without those, I kind of feel like I have to put it at high B. Yeah. It had a nice big-ish launch lineup, but a lot of them were not games people care about yet. I so much want to put it at A, but I think that's my nostalgia talking. I don't think it actually earned an A for launch, unless you could factor in Super Smash Bros. And Pikmin. Like, because we really have to draw a line somewhere. We can't just keep being like, oh, well, these are only 2 weeks later. Okay, well, these are only 2 weeks after that. Like, we can't do that. And so we have to treat it like a vacuum. Like, what if the console came out and whatever came out at launch is all you have that you can ever get? And I don't think that the GameCube's lineup at launch was enough to really make it worth it. Unlike Super Nintendo or even Game Boy Advance, which had a pretty variety of great choices, I think that the GameCube just falls short of that. It's like right falls short of A rank. It needed one more thing. I'm sorry. I hope that doesn't upset anybody too much, because it does upset me. I want to put it at A. I want to put it at S, but that's nostalgia. Nintendo DS. Okay. Okay, so Japan for Nintendo DS did have a couple other options. I got Nintendo DS at launch. At this point, I was getting all consoles at launch. But the other options in Japan were Pokemon Dash, which is not that great. Polarium, which is kind of fun, but like, WarioWare Touched, which is pretty good, but I don't think we got that as a launch title. And some others that not very notable. Another Mahjong game, funny enough. But I'd almost think Mahjong would work better on a DS than on a, what was the other Mahjong game for? N64. Okay, have a good evening, Dark Data. Thanks for hanging out. See you next time. Loved WarioWare Touched. Yeah, WarioWare Touched was great, but I don't think we got that launch. What did we get at launch? We got Asphalt Urban GT. Asphalt isn't it a mobile game series? Yeah, I think Asphalt is a mobile game series. And they ported one to DS for launch. Kinda not the best for a racing game. They gave you a racing game option, but yeah, it's the racing game you get when you're desperate. I don't think that counts for anything. Madden NFL 2005. I'm not sure people cared about having Madden NFL on the go, with obviously going to be way worse graphics, way watered down gameplay. I have my doubts that Madden NFL 2005 on the DS was that beloved. The Herbs. God, the Herbs. The Sims in the City game. The Sims game that takes place in the city. I don't think anybody cares about the Herbs on DS. Maybe there's like 2 people out there. I'm sorry if those 2 of you are watching. I hope you enjoyed the Herbs on the DS. I don't think that was a big system seller. Oh, it did have a pack in the DS. Metroid Prime Hunter's First Hunt. I don't know if we can count that as a game. That's a very weird situation because it's a demo. I definitely fiddled around with it, but that's not enough to really give it any points. It's better than anything. It's kind of a pack-in, but it's a tech demo at best. I thought Herbs would be at some plant game. Spider-Man 2, probably not really that loved. This is not looking great for the DS as much as I love the DS. And then the 2 games that I actually purchased on the DS. There's Field of Magic XYXX. That game is not given enough credit. That was essentially Sega's more risque WarioWare. I think people underrate that game. Unfortunately, I don't think it was a system seller, but it was an interesting game, and I think I only got it because there wasn't much else to get at launch. And I'm glad I got it. I got the sequel too. But it still, I don't think, does the DS a lot of favors. And then Super Mario 64 DS. An N64 game, so cool. Yeah, Mario 64 on the go. Had a lot of cool features, like the additional characters, some new stages and bosses, and multiplayer minigame thing. It also controlled kind of worse, and the graphics, I think, were worse than that 64 one. I'll give it credit. It's trying to do Super Mario Advance again. Unfortunately, that's about all we got. Like, that's the entire lineup. Really, all that's super notable there is Super Mario 64 DS, as much as I want Field of Magic XY to matter. And Metroid Prime Hunter's First Hunt is like a demo. The Nintendo DS, honestly, at launch, I remember it launched kind of competing with the PSP, and it was really hard to like justify to the PSP fanboys that the DS was a serious system at launch. Early games still included stuff like Yoshi's Touch and Go, which should not have been a full-priced game. I think it did launch the Nintendo DS launch. I'll do a double check to see if they are. Yeah, it is not. Yeah, Nintendogs is not a launch title. Brain Age definitely was not a launch title. That was much later. Yeah, that is all of the games that launched in the US on the DS. If WarioWare Touch launched in the US, that would have been great. It launched in every region except for the US. And, yeah, that's really it. It's a shame. The DS eventually would go on to have some amazing library. But the launch lineup for the DS, it was not only small, it was pretty much all mediocre or like games nobody cared about. And honestly, I'd put it below the N64 because the N64 had Super Mario 64. That's about it. It goes above the Game Boy Color because I think it had more interesting games than the Game Boy Color. But like, the best the DS had going for it was a port of a game that was on the Nintendo 64, and so it wasn't even unique. And I can't put that above that 64 for that. Yeah, rough. Now we're getting pretty late. Yeah, the Wii's next. I don't know why this says it's out of order. The Wii is the next. But not rough. The Wii is the next one, and like, we can start with the elephant in the room. Wii Sports, the pack-in game. The pack-in game, not just the Nintendo Wii pack-in game. The pack-in game, like, of all time. Like, Wii Sports, it's hilarious because I think Nintendo really saw it as just a tech demo of this will get people to see what's cool about the Wii and then they'll buy other games. But ironically, there was a lot of casual, like, and non-gamers that bought the Wii for Wii Sports and never bought a single other game. Like, yeah, people bought the Wii just for Wii Sports and they never bought another game. I don't think that was Nintendo's intention. It still worked great for them. Like, most households had a Wii. And it was their best-selling system at that point. Pretty much. I mean, the handhelds actually, I think, still maybe outsold them. But that's a different market. I felt the pain of all the money they could have gotten. Maybe. I don't know if it would have... To be honest, I don't know if those people would have bought a Wii and bought Wii Sports. the fact that it was a pack-in made it an all-in-one purchase. I think that they got plenty of money. The Wii printed money. They were fine. Wii Sports, like, already single-handedly is carrying the Wii launch. I'm not even a huge Wii Sports fan. Well, I have to admit that. But what else do we have? First of all, one is that we didn't have at launch that other regions had. Mainly Japan. Japan had Elebits, which is a kind of obscure game, but I think it was interesting. They had Tamagotchi Party On. Interesting. SD Gundam G-Breaker. I don't know, like, I'm just listing games that sound like they might have been popular. More notably, they had Wii Play at launch, which was another minigame collection. And honestly, a really good minigame collection. They also had WarioWare Smooth Moves at launch, which is a pretty good minigame collection. It's not my favorite WarioWare game, but it's good. But, like, Japan had a couple, like, really great things. What did we have? Yeah, I'll get to those, Dragon. We had Avatar: The Last Airbender. Game based off a TV show. I doubt it was amazing. Or I doubt it was amazing. It was probably fine at best. Nobody cared, probably. Barnyard, isn't that based off a TV show or something, or a movie? I don't know. I don't think anybody cared. Call of Duty 3. I honestly don't know enough about Wii's Call of Duty 3. I don't know if it held up to the other ones, but it tried. They tried to put Call of Duty on a Wii, so it's something. I don't know if it was the right market for release. Cars? I'm pretty sure this is Disney's Cars. Is this Disney's Cars? There's not another game called Cars, right? Yeah, this is Disney's Cars. Another game that probably was fine at best. I'm gonna skip some of the better ones and get the kind of meh ones out of the way first. The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, probably another fine at best. GT Pro Series, fine at best. Happy Feet, probably not even fine. Madden NFL 07, you got your sports game. Somebody cares, I'm sure. Especially since everybody had a reason to get a Wii. I'm sure there's people like that. Monster 4x4 World Circuit. I haven't heard much about it. Need for Speed Carbon. Pretty popular racing franchise. Good to have Need for Speed on there at launch. Open Season, another movie bait. Look at all the shovelware. We had a lot of shovelware right from the start. They had Rampage Total Destruction. Rampage is a fun arcade game. I don't know how well Rampage did at that point in time for a launch title. Probably not great. Raymond Raving Rabbids. The kids probably like that. I don't think that was bad. SpongeBob SquarePants Creature from the Krusty Krab. Probably garbage. The Ant Bully. Almost certainly garbage. Tony Hawk's Downhill Jam. I don't know anything about that. Maybe that was good. Now let's get into the bigger hits. Excite Truck. Excite Bike. This is like a spiritual successor to Excite Bike back in the day. I had Excite Truck. Excite Truck actually was a lot of fun. I think it probably went under the radar a bit, and if people wanted a racing game on the Wii at launch, they probably got Need for Speed. But Excite Truck was a pretty good game. Pretty many good things. Yeah, Excite Truck was pretty good. My favorite thing about it was that you could, if you put any MP3s on the SD card that you could put into the Wii, you could have the MP3s play in the background of Excite Truck. It had MP3 support, which is cool, so you could put in your own music. Plus, it was like a racing game with trucks, but like the tracks transform if you hit certain spots that made the tracks change shape. It was fun. Marvel Ultimate Alliance. I never played the first one. I only played the third one, but I'm guessing if that's given the hype that was given for the third one, it probably, the series in general, is pretty highly acclaimed, critically acclaimed. So like having that at launch, cool. Red Steel. Red Steel. I got Red Steel at launch. I actually kind of liked Red Steel. I thought Red Steel was very clever. I was never into first-person shooters, but I liked swords. I liked swords more than I liked guns. I was not a gun person. I was a sword person. And so I really liked Red Steel, but I think I kind of liked it because I wanted to like it. I've heard a lot of people have issues with it, and it definitely was a flawed game. I think it was a cool concept, at least. Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz. This was, I think, the point that Super Monkey Ball was headed downhill. I think Super Monkey Ball 2 was the last one that people thought were really great. And so that's almost kind of, probably not the worst one out there, but it's kind of rough to have an inferior Super Monkey Ball's launch title. Trauma Center Second Opinion. Trauma Center was a great DS game. Unfortunately, I think it's very niche, so I don't think that people cared much, but it gave a lot of, more variety. This had a lot of variety in this launch lineup. And then, of course, best for last, Twilight Princess. It was a simultaneous launch on the GameCube, so you didn't have to get a Wii to play Twilight Princess. But if you were getting a Wii, you probably were also getting Twilight Princess. It launched same day. And if you were getting the GameCube version of Twilight Princess, you were buying that on the day the Wii came out. So you were actively choosing not to get a Wii just to get that. I think launching with a Zelda game ended up being brilliant and also irrelevant, unfortunately, because again, you bought Wii Sports for Wii Sport, or you bought Wii for Wii Sports. You might have bought it for Twilight Princess, but at the end, nothing else needed to be on this list. Wii Sports could have carried the launch. It could have been the only game, and the Wii would have succeeded. The fact that you had options like Twilight Princess, like Excite Truck, like, I don't know, I'd probably Need for Speed. You had options here. This isn't an S rank lineup, but I think it's A rank solely because Wii Sports carries it to A rank. I think this would be a B rank without Wii Sports. The only reason this isn't an S rank is because other than Wii Sports, you don't have some huge variety on hard hitters. I think this is better than Game Boy Advance. I think it barely meets S rank, S tier. Someone who didn't get a Wii at launch has one of those. Fair. Yeah, I got a Wii at launch. With a lot of hoops to jump through, but I got one at launch. And I got it with, obviously Wii Sports came with it. I got it with Twilight Princess and Red Steel. I got Excite Truck, but I don't think I got it at launch. And I might have at some point gotten Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz. I don't remember. But yeah. That's the Wii. Okay, so now 3DS, the last dedicated handheld. 3DS actually had a pretty decently sized lineup. Let's see, we had Asphalt 3D. Again, Asphalt is a mobile game, so it's not the ideal kind of racing game you want. And honestly, not even the best racing game you got at launch on 3DS. Got Bust-A-Move Universe. That's a fun puzzle game. Unfortunately, I don't think you're buying a 3DS to play Bust-A-Move. Combat of Giants Dinosaurs 3D. That sounds like that's probably garbage, whatever that is. Lego Star Wars 3 The Clone Wars. Again, you're probably not buying a 3DS for this. You're probably not buying a 3DS for Madden NFL Football. Nintendogs and Cats. That was a good idea, but... And I liked Nintendogs. I got Nintendogs and Cats, and it was fine. I think the novelty had already worn off from Nintendogs. Nintendogs was kind of this one-time cool thing, and Nintendogs and Cats didn't have much space to set up. It had Cats that did less, and it had 3 versions, which was excessive. It had French Bulldog and New Friends, Golden Retriever and New Friends, and Toy Poodle and New Friends, so that you could have exclusive breeds only in the version you purchased. Some sort of Pokemon concept. But as I saw it pointed out, there's not much to do in Nintendogs and Cats or Nintendogs in general. You teach your dogs some voice commands, which was cool when on the DS when you first had microphone and stuff. But 3DS, the novelty wore off. You teach them some commands. You take them for a walk. You do some competitions. There's not a whole lot. Even more than Pokemon. Like, Nintendo, it's unfortunate. Nintendogs and Cats, just, it tried to capture lightning in a bottle. And lightning in a bottle is kind of a stretch to call Nintendogs. Nintendogs was novel, and it was popular because it was novel, but the novelty wore off. Then Pilot Wings Resort. Unfortunately, Pilot Wings was a niche game. I don't think that was something people cared much about. Pro Evolution Soccer, you're not getting 3DS for that. Rayman 3D, cool. Rayman 1 again. We had that in Game Boy Advance. Yeah, now it's in 3D. I had Rayman 3D. It crashed. It crashed a lot. Some of the launch games had this issue where they would crash a lot. And that was one of them. And at this point, Rayman 3D didn't cut it anymore as a launch title, I don't think. Ridge Racer 3D is probably your best racing game at launch, considering the other was Asphalt 3D. Again, probably not a reason to buy a 3DS. Samurai Warriors Chronicles. I mean, Samurai Warriors has its fans. I think it's grown a lot in popularity since then. I still don't think you were getting a 3DS for that. Steel Diver, you definitely weren't. I don't know why Steel Diver was a physical release. Super Monkey Ball 3D. Monkey Ball is at its low at this point. That didn't matter much. Super Street Fighter 4 3D Edition. Probably one of the best things there. And I say that as somebody who doesn't like fighting games and doesn't like Street Fighter. The Sims 3 on your 3DS. Did you really want that? And then last is Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Shadow Wars. I know nothing about Tom Clancy. I was so desperate for games when the 3DS came out. I got Nintendogs and Cats. I got Rayman 3D. And I got that Tom Clancy's game because I was like, well, it's at least like a turn-based strategy game. So, like, I thought maybe I'd like it. It was fine. It crashed even more than Rayman 3D. And it was infuriating spending all the time on a long mission and then it just crashes. And there is a reason the 3DS, like 6 months after it released, got actually I think it was an $80 price drop from like $250 to $170, I think. It got a huge price drop. And to apologize to early adopters, Nintendo did the Ambassador program, giving anybody who had purchased one before the price drop, they got 10 NES games and 10 Game Boy Advance games exclusively on their 3DS, which was cool, and I appreciated it. But during those 6 months, yeah, there were some more releases. Not anything super notable. You had Star Fox 64 3D and Ocarina of Time 3D. Those are ports. They look nice. There just wasn't much. And I think it would be biased of me retrospectively in my love for 3DS to give this a good review because this objectively was a bad launch lineup, as you can tell by the fact that they had to drop the price in 6 months. Like, this isn't a debate for this one, unfortunately. Honestly, I think it beats Game Boy Color, but I think DS even managed to be a little better. I also want to actually bump, now that I'm seeing how everything's filled out, I want to put N64 on C tier. No, I don't. It has Super Mario 64 and Pilot Wing 64, like that's it. Yeah, I can't justify putting it up to C. I'd just be doing that to kind of balance things out, but I don't think it's right there. Okay. Well, now Wii U. I loved Wii U despite it flopping. But what was the lineup? Well, first of all, the games that were Japan launched that were not us. Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate was a launch title in Japan. That's really cool. We didn't get that. Let's see, any of these other ones. No, I think that's it. I think that's all that's notable there. Okay, well, what do we have? We actually have a pretty big launch lineup for Wii U. This is honestly one of the biggest launch lineups we had. We had Assassin's Creed 3. Cool. With a port. Batman Arkham City Armored Edition. I think it was also a port. I don't know how much it was received. How well received. Ben 10 Omniverse. No, that's just a TV as a licensed game again. Call of Duty Black Ops 2. Probably the worst version you could have of that, but it's Call of Duty. Darksiders 2. Darksiders 2 is actually pretty good, and I got it at launch and I liked it. I don't think it's very mainstream. It's not system seller. ESPN Sports Connection. I don't even know what that is. Some sports thing. Epic Mickey 2. That was a launch title. I don't think Epic Mickey 2 did as well as Epic Mickey 1. But it's not bad. FIFA 13. Sure, sports game. Funky Barn. Don't know what that is. Game Party Champions. I don't know. Just Dance 4. You can play Just Dance in anything. You can play. I'm sure that was released on Wii also. Madden NFL. Mass Effect 3. That's kind of cool, I guess. NBA 2K13. Another sports option. You can play anything. New Super Mario Bros. U. Here's something actual, like, first party. And at this point, people were kind of burnt out by Super Mario Bros. I know I was. It had some cool environments and stuff. But, like, it's not particularly special for a launch title. Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge. Kind of surprised that's on there, but Nintendo Land. Nintendo Land was great. Nintendo Land should have been a pack-in, but it was honestly an amazing game that unfortunately can never see light again. Rabbids Land, I don't know if anybody cares about. Scribblenauts Unlimited. Scribblenauts is a cool idea. I loved it on the DS. I got it on the Wii U, I think, and it just, by then, it kind of, the novelty wore off. It had the same problem as Nintendogs and Cats. Sing Party. I don't know if people cared much. Skylanders Giants. This was, the Toys to Life was kind of, I guess, at a high here, so there's that. You could, I think that released in like everything. Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed. I did get that, and let me tell you, one of the best racing games of all time. And the Wii U version wasn't bad. Tank. I think that should have been like a digital game for like cheaper. Tekken Tag Tournament 2. Sure. Transformers Prime the game. Warriors Orochi 3 Hyper. Wipeout 3. Your Shape Fitness. Yeah, you want a fitness game at launch. And Zombie U. Zombie U is super both underrated and didn't quite live up to what it could have been. I got Zombie U at launch. I really liked the concept of your gamepad was your backpack and you couldn't pause the game to go through your inventory. You had to like go through your gamepad trying to sort through the stuff in your backpack while zombies could still come at you. That was a cool idea to me. I never finished Zombie U though. Honestly, the Wii U launch lineup is sort of weird. It's really big. There's a lot of trash, but also a variety of pretty good games. There's not a ton that's exclusive. And that kind of hurts it. As New Super Mario Bros. U, it's not really helpful. Nintendo Land, but people probably didn't buy it for that. The system didn't do well, kind of for a reason, and there wasn't a lot of reason to own it at launch. There were definitely great options, but they were ports. I think it's fair to put this as the first C tier. It has a good variety of options. It just nothing that really sells the system other than, again, Nintendo Land, which doesn't do enough. Now we're finally at the Switch. Okay, this does have the eShop games. Okay. Wait, where did I put the Wii? Okay, the Wii isn't a good spot. I just remembered the Wii had a Virtual Console introduced with it too, so it had a bunch of retro options. The Wii had a really good launch. Nintendo Switch. So, first let's start with the ones that only launched on Switch in Japan. Disgaea 5 Complete. That would have been really cool to have at launch. Dragon Quest Heroes 1 and 2. That one really hurt because we never got that one. I Am Setsuna, which I think already existed on Wii U. I think. Nobunaga no Yaba. I don't know what that is. Puyo Puyo Tetris. We got that not long after, but we didn't have that at launch. That would have been a good thing to have at launch. And that's it for the Japanese exclusive. So, physical games that were not eShop games. 1-2 Switch. Abysmal. Awful. Should have been a pack-in. Not worth the money. Not a system seller. They tried to replicate Wii Sports, I think, and they failed. Just Dance 2017. Also not a system seller. You could play Just Dance on anything. Skylanders Imaginators. I think this was the last Skylanders game. The Toys to Life bubble was popping. Amiibo still managed to survive, but that's because they don't tie themselves to one game. Super Bomberman R. I'm a huge Bomberman fan. Super Bomberman R is, in my opinion, one of the most nothing burger Bomberman games ever. Period. Story mode is really bland. The gameplay itself looks kind of cheap. The cutscenes look cool. Multiplayer is just Bomberman. It doesn't bring anything to the table good that makes it worth getting. I got Super Bomberman at release. That was because I didn't have a lot of options. Because there's only one other physical game at release I got, which I'll get to. There's The Binding of Isaac Afterbirth Plus. I did not get that. Not a fan of that style of game. They're popular. You can get them digitally, so I don't think it's a big deal. It's also on a lot of platforms. But Breath of the Wild. That's the other one I got at launch. Breath of the Wild was... It was released Wii U simultaneously, so if you didn't get a Switch at launch, but for some reason you had a Wii U, you could have gotten that version. But Breath of the Wild is the Wii's reason you got a Switch. Breath of the Wild, when it released, I believe it had... Did it have close to a 1-to-1 attachment rate or higher? It was pretty much anybody who had a Switch had Breath of the Wild. It was incredible. I mean, it was incredible how popular it was. I have my mixed feelings at Breath of the Wild. But honestly, the Breath of the Wild did amazing at showing what the Switch is good for, too, though. It being such a massive game made it great for the hybrid model because you could play on your TV, and then when you had to, leave it, you could just take it with you. And I think that did great at showing it off. And then I'll mention the eShop games. We had the arcade, what was the ACA? The Arcade Archives. So Metal Slug 3, Shock Troopers, The King of Fighters 98, Waku Waku 7, and World Heroes Perfect. I don't think that's super notable. I mean, cool, you get some Neo Geo games on there, I guess. But, you're not buying a Switch for them, but it's good options. Good thing to have on there. Blaster Master Zero, that was cool to have there. Fast RMX, I think that was a pretty popular racing game. Especially when we didn't have Mario Kart yet. New Frontier Days, Founding Pioneers, I don't know what that is. Othello, I really don't think I'd be having Othello on the Switch. Shovel Knight, Treasure Trove, along with Spectre of Torment first releasing there. That was a pretty big deal. Shovel Knight was great, and yeah, it was on other stuff, but you could get it Spectre of Torment, the new campaign on there. And you get Treasure Trove, and then just going forward, get all of the expansions. Snipper Clips, really unique little eShop multiplayer game, really great. Soldem, Drop Connect Race, I don't know what that is. Vloez, I think that was a really game. I don't think it did great. And everybody's favorite, Room in the Night Sky, possibly the worst game on the system, maybe ever. Probably not ever. Not a good game. If you want to see, Shell Shock Prime probably has on his YouTube the VOD of me having him play that for Pick Your Poison, and it was not good. That being said, you have Breath of the Wild, and then you have a few other good options, but mostly you have Breath of the Wild. You see, how I see this is kind of a similar situation to, say, Nintendo 64, where you had one really great game. No, you have some decent options. I mean, this isn't going down around 64s, don't worry. Breath of the Wild alone is pretty amazing and would carry it on its own. I don't think it does better than the Wii. I think Wii Sports still does better than carrying the Wii than Breath of the Wild, and I think the Wii had more other options. But I think this does beat the Game Boy Advance. I think it goes Eric. And that leaves the Switch 2. Let's see, we pull up Switch 2 launch games. Here we go. Every Nintendo Switch 2 launch game. Buckle up. So the Switch 2 obviously is not out yet. We might get launch games that haven't been announced, especially digital. I can't give impressions on how the games perform because they're not out yet. So this is kind of a hypothetical. How does the Switch 2 launch look compared to the other launches? So we got Mario Kart World, which already looks phenomenal. Mario Kart, while it's not the non-gamer phenomenon that Wii Sports is, and it's not the game-changing formula that Breath of the Wild was, Mario Kart itself is, like, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, I think, is the top-selling Switch game, and Mario Kart in general is a system seller. Mario Kart World is the big game for the Switch 2 launch, and it's already probably going to do great at that, despite the price. And I'm probably not going to factor price into this because I didn't for anything else. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are getting day one Switch 2 editions that you can upgrade to or just buy outright. Two probably pretty meaningful games, but they are Switch games. So I won't count them as carrying a lot of weight, but they do carry some weight. People love them. Bravely Default Flying Fairy HD Remastered. That is a 3DS game being remastered. I wouldn't say that carries a lot of weight either, but it's a good game. Survival Kids, probably not super meaningful. Rune Factory, Guardians of Azuma. Is Guardians of Azuma... Is it a new Rune Factory game? Or is it a... It is new. It'll have simultaneously with Switch and Steam, but it is new. Oh, thanks, Inheritance. I just looked it up anyways, but thank you. Of course you would know. Yeah, so... That, I think, is notable. It's multiplat, so that's worth saying that's multiplat, so people don't need to get a Switch 2 for this. But if you get a Switch 2, if you like Rune Factory, I mean, looks like it's going to be good. Like, I mean, the screenshot look at like it's pretty. I'm probably not getting it, but I can see people definitely picking it up if they get a Switch 2. The problem is there's going to be a lot of competition in games. There's a big lineup for Switch 2, and games are pricey for it. So I think more likely people will get it on another system. I think Switch 2 buyers won't probably gravitate towards it, but it does round out to give a farming sim for more variety. And I count variety as a positive thing for a launch lineup. Split Fiction is an existing game. Cool. Variety, I guess. I don't think that's too meaningful. Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, I think, is a little more meaningful. Yes, you can get it obviously on PlayStation 4 and 5 and on Steam. But it's a pretty good game, and people that are like Nintendo gamers that don't have any gaming computer or Steam Deck or anything and don't have other consoles, I could see this being a good day one pickup on the Switch 2. Street Fighter 6, pretty much the same answer. I could see this being a good day one pickup on Switch 2 if you don't have other means to play this. It even going to have some exclusive content if you do have this on other systems. So, Civilization 7. I believe I mentioned, I think it's getting one of the upgrade packs if you have it on Switch, which is good. And the mouse controls will make it good. It's a good another option on there. It's not, you can play it on like anything. I don't think it's a big deal, but it's cool. Cyberpunk 2077. Back to the same argument as Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade and Street Fighter 6. It's a good option for people that don't have other ways to play it for a day one game. Hogwarts Legacy, I don't want to get into the issues with J.K. Rowling. Let's just say that Hogwarts Legacy, though, if you really wanted to play Hogwarts Legacy, you could play it with Switch 1, but it's fine. It's fine. Yakuza 0 Director's Cut. It's a bit of a shame that they don't have a more recent Yakuza game launching with it. We don't have Like a Dragon or Infinite Wealth, or I think there's another more recent one. We don't have any of those, but like I think Yakuza 0 is probably good another option on the Switch 2. Fortnite, meaningless. You can play Fortnite on everything. Who cares? You're not... It's also... it's free. It's free. So there is that. If you want to play on Switch 2, you can. Sure. Deltarune, chapters 1 through 4. It's a weird place, because I feel Weird Ox is not the full game yet. But... Plus, you can play it on, like, everything. But, hey, it's kind of cool that to have it after 3 and 4 at launch. I assume 3 and 4 will also be available on everything else, so not a big deal, I don't think. Nobunaga's Ambition Awakening. Complete Edition. Again, if you don't know another way to play it, you might want it. Puyo Puyo Tetris 2S. That's pretty good because we haven't gone. There hasn't been a puzzle game yet in the launch lineup. And I could see it's not really necessarily utilizing the power of the Switch 2, but like I could see people wanting that on the Switch 2. You could also just get Puyo Puyo Tetris and for cheaper and play that, I guess. But we're talking the launch lineups, not whether they're backwards compatible. Fast Fusion, I don't know, probably is cool. Hitman World of Assassination, another if you don't have a way to play it and you want to, it gives you the option to. And then the GameCube NSO with Wind Waker, Soul Calibur 2, and F-Zero GX. Those are solid picks for GameCube games there. Honestly, Mario Kart World, I already said, is practically the reason to get it at launch. And there are a lot of good options. This is a pretty beefy lineup for launch day. Like, how many games is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 games plus 3 potential or the three GameCube games if you have NSO. So that's not bad. And honestly, I don't think any of these are shovelware. They'll probably have shovelware at launch. I don't see why they wouldn't. They just didn't advertise it at the Direct. I don't even think this is the full launch lineup. So I think given what we already know, this is a very solid launch lineup. The issues with the system at this point are not the launch lineup. It's the pricing, making it not very accessible. But I personally think that's... Maybe there's a couple games there that aren't really... There's at least like 15 games there that are great pickups for your new Switch 2. And one of them is exclusive and some of them are upgrades with more stuff. I was gonna put it in S. I think it's actually A. Just because Super Nintendo, again, those were all exclusives on the Super Nintendo, and they were all, well, other than Gradius 3, I don't think was exclusive. They were all hard hitters. Maybe Gradius 3 is, I don't know. Frick. I think the Switch 2 is currently sitting at high A tier. I think it has a very solid launch lineup. And yeah, I think launching with a Mario Kart is very strong. And they don't necessarily need much else on there. Anything else is just, we have lots of good options on things to get on your new Switch 2, especially if you're purely a Nintendo gamer and don't have any other way to play games. The Switch 2 has an amazing launch lineup with a bunch of really great games that are maybe ports, but you wouldn't have played them yet. So, and I also know people that are even just trying to get at launch for the upgraded versions of Zelda games, which I wouldn't do, but like, people love those games. So I think it sits comfortably at A rank. Yeah. So that is my Nintendo console launch tier list. I'll try to put that in the Discord later.